Hello, welcome to another episode of the Escape Pod. I'm Salvatore Heron, and this is a brand new series from us talking about the gigantically expansive universe of Warhammer 40,000. And this is our first step into this exciting new adventure in a brand new universe. So if you're a veteran of the series, welcome. I am new. If you're new to the series, hi. I'm with you in this grand adventure. If you don't want to hear basically me cover what Warhammer 40k is and my background in it, you can skip to the time code here. But if you want to, have some background knowledge about the universe and me, stick around. So basically, Warhammer 40k is set, in the year 40,000. There's constant war, there's tons of factions and races, and they're all fighting all the time. They're all constantly attacking and converging and doing things to each other. We mainly follow humanity because, we're humans, so relatable. Humanity is split up into kind of basically two factions. There are like the good guys, and there are the bad guys who are corrupted by chaos, and they're called like Chaos Space Marines. We have normal Space Marines, the Eldar, and there's the Necrons, and there's the Orcs, and there's the Tau, and there's gods, and there's cosmic entities, and there's ancient races, and it's basically just a place where there's tons and tons of factions to fight. We are going to be discussing mainly the books, though I will be touching on other things. As a Warhammer fan, have only played Dawn of War and Space Marine, and I watched the Hell's Reach web series. That's my threshold for Warhammer 40k stuff, so I wanted to get more into the universe because it looked really fucking awesome and cool, and so I decided to start that and document my slow descent into madness as I try to go through as much of the Black Library as I can. I'm not promising every book because there's no way I can do that. I'm going to cherry pick books I think I want to read, whatever people suggest to me that I think will be interesting. I will be covering the Horus Heresy, which is kind of their big epic series, but before then, we'll just kind of cherry pick books, see how we feel. So, without further ado, I decided to pick for the first book to read, mainly because it was one of the books I had in my local half price, Dead Men Walking by Stephen Lyons. It's an Imperial Guard novel. It's actually fairly well sized. I read it in about a week. I basically read this because I thought that it's a standalone, so it was easy to dip my toes into it, read it apart from everything else in the series, and also because it's about the Imperial Guard. I do love Space Marines and Spartans and the epic armor-wearing badasses of space. I love that shit so fucking much. I also like seeing how a normal person handles the situation of being in a galaxy that is constantly bombarded by war from all sides, and how they fight, how they fit in, how they manage things. I thought that'd be a really cool first look into the series. And I was actually really pleasantly surprised with Dead Men Walking. The premise of the book is basically that there is this mining planet. It's fairly new, prosperous, and very peaceful. And they're mining and they find this obelisk. It's emitting a strange force, and all of a sudden, Necrons pop up. Necrons are, for anybody who is unaware, basically these ancient beings. I think the first actual race, I'd say, in the mythos, in the lore. They are undying, creepy motherfuckers. And so I think they're kind of like one of the stronger forces in the series, and it's the Imperial Guard fighting them. So very good times for everyone involved. Definitely not an unfair battle. And the book really surprised me. I didn't know what to expect out of a Warhammer 40k novel. I didn't really do much research about it. I didn't look up too much. I wanted to just jump in and see what the fuck was up with this. And we'll see as we go along if this theory actually pans out, and I just found this one weird one. I was afraid the books all very much be about just war and fighting and killing and troops and battles and fight scenes upon tentacles, about guns and tanks and machinery and how it all works. And I was afraid I'd be reading like an Eric Nyland Halo book. Techno babble up the wazoo. And it was all just cool shit. But I was surprised to find that this is a book about two people who are not used to fighting and being in a war scenario, slowly being beaten down, becoming things they do not want to be. And it's really fucking cool. So our two main characters, actually before I talk about them, this book for some reason has nothing about it. On the lexiconum for the whole Warhammer 40k book stuff, there's a sentence describing the summary, and that's it. There's no the overall summarization, no character listing, no nothing, which is weird to me. So we follow Gunther, Sorensen, and Eric's Henrik. Gunther is a mine overseer on the planet. He has a very nice job. He's not high up per se, but he's good. He's comfy. Then there's Eric's, who is the governor's of the planet's niece. And she's kind of rebellious, kind of hates all the politics, hates all the pampering. It's this first chapter, which I think this first chapter, like, is the backbone of the entire fucking book. It's amazing. It sucked me right in. They're on a date, and they're in love. And Eric's, I think, fell in love with him mainly because, and I theorized it when I was reading it, but later on they actually explicitly said it. Like, she was attracted to him because he was treating her like a person and was being honest. And she loved that, and he's a good boy. Gunther's a good boy, and everything in this book that happens to him is undeserved, and fuck you, Stephen Lyons. Same with Eric. Pure girl doesn't deserve all this bullshit, and she wants to kind of like see the Undercity, and I don't know if it's because I'm not into the lore, but they're just like mutants, and they never explain like why there's mutants. And I want to say, like, if you're somebody who is into the lore, don't come on this channel, on this video, and give me shit for not knowing all this stuff. Because you know, as well as I know, that there is too much of this. If I get stuff wrong that's lore related, I'm not sorry. So, there's just mutants on the planet, and I don't know why. And the mutants are like a fairly big part of the book, but there's never like an explanation as to like why. And to be fair, there's never really an explanation as to why the Necrons are there. There's enough of an explanation of like, they were here before us, they lived here, they woke up, they're pissed that we're here. And I'm like, cool. Is that like the whole Necron backstory? No, but I get it. I understand why they're attacking. It's enough. Whereas the mutants, I'm like, I guess they're in the lower levels, so they're scum? I don't quite know. But they have this cute date, and they're really adorable, and Gunther's like super nervous the whole time. And they go down, and they encounter a mutant, and they run away, and Gunther doesn't fight. And he's kind of like upset that he can't protect Eric's, which is like the whole plot of the book. Like the whole book is like a microcosm for like Gunther, and where his arc will go and where her arc will go. It ends in a cute way, they leave, and that's the last time they're ever fucking together. Throughout the whole book, they're talking about each other. When Gunther's at a low point, he thinks about Eric's. When Eric's at a low point, she thinks about Gunther. And it's that like relationship, even though it's built up like super short, is so effective that it really does carry the book, and it carries their emotional like arcs throughout. After that, I believe you meet the Commissar Castellan. So there's the Krieg, the death, what are they called? The fucking Death Korp of Krieg. And they're not Space Marines, but this is probably the closest, like, humans get to Space Marine level of, like, fucking badassery, because they're the undying guys who just, like, are from a planet plagued by war, and they're constantly just bombarded with this, and they have it in their blood, and they just fucking fight till they die all the time. And they wear, like, skull masks with breathers through them, like gas masks, and they're just, like, cool as shit. The colonels of the Krieg kind of control them, and the commissars are there just for public relations, because the Krieg are just like, no emotion, just I want to fight and kill things, and for the good of the Emperor, that's it. And he's great. His arc it goes in a weird way. I felt the author might not have known what to do with him, because it didn't feel very built up to. You also then meet Eric's Uncle Henrik, who's the governor. He has an interesting arc through the book, too. He kind of becomes a POV character. He kind of feels like a bit of a dick at first, but he kind of has this rebellious niece, and he's had all of his sons die in the war, and he doesn't want any more death in his family, so he's very protective of her, which makes perfect sense, and she's kind of like a rebellious little shit. She's young, she's like 20-something, she just wants to like explore stuff and see the lower levels, and it's like, but there's mutants, and you might get killed. I'm okay with characters having flaws. That means there's a flaw with the writing, it's just, they're a flawed character, and that's the point, because by the end of it, she has to reconcile with all these things. You get a look at Colonel 186, one of the Krieg colonels, who is like a really big character in the book, and he's a kind of a dick. Like, he respects the commissar, he respects the governor to a point, but he's very much like, for the Emperor. For the Emperor! This whole shit still kind of starts with Gunther going below into his mines, and the men have found an obelisk that's emitting the green light. And in this scene, we get Henriksen, who is the mining guy in charge of that like little area who finds the thing. And I think he stays back to help with the evacuation, and we never see him again. Also there we have Cruz, who is Gunther's assistant, who also never shows up again. I think Gunther thinks about his assistant Cruz once after this scene, and never about Henriksen again, even though like he's or Herrickson, sorry. Even though he's like the guy who found the first thing to lead to the Necron invasion, but they never talk about him. I mean, it's war, a lot of people are going missing, but I feel like it's weird they never even like mention the guy as like like the person who first found it. But they kind of make a point to show that like they kind of don't care about anybody. Like Gunther would do all these things, and they kind of like just don't think about him or even recognize him or congratulate him or anything, and they just sort of like even pat him on the head. They just move on with their life and use the information. Like, it shows how uncaring they are. And it's really what it shows is that like it is a grim, dark future where there's only war. Like it's really like everything's just like terrible and bad, and only to survive is by doing awful, terrible things. I love it when like stuff finally shows you like the heroes doing stuff you typically see villains do, killing off a henchman, or being the ones that are getting attacked instead of, going out and adventuring. Like, I love when stuff subverts that and does it. The villains and the heroes always have, like, similar roles, and it's cool how in this, some of them are like, switched a little bit. Like, it's cool that, like, the Death Korps of Krieg will just send men out to die, while the Necrons are, like, constantly repairing their men and sending them back out, and, like, teleporting them back and reviving them and sending them back out, and they're not as, like, just die for the cause. They do the thing, and in movies, the bad guys will kill one of their henchmen because they're just not behaving correctly, and the good guys never do that. They do that. In this book, there's a fucking scene where the guy's like, I've had enough of this. The drill sergeant's like, okay, and shoots him in the fucking head, and it's like, this is great. Pretty soon after the obelisk is discovered and Gunther runs away like a little bitch boy, the Necrons show up and they're attacking as soon as being attacked. Eryx goes to find Gunther in his apartment to basically be like, I love you, I want to be with you during this. She gets like halfway there, gets attacked by insects, it's scary. Gunther's like at his office mulling over the obelisk thing, and they get split up. And Gunther spends the first kind of like, I say a third or half of the book adamantly looking for Eryx, meets a friend, goes on adventures, all through the city is being attacked by Necrons. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. The Death Korps of Krieg are there on vacation, aka Kostlin and Mannheim are there on vacation, because Death Korps of Krieg just wanted to do drills, and the commissars are like, we're gonna go relax, and like, thank God they're there, so they help out, they intervene. There's the PDF, the Planetary Defense Forces. Colonel 186 of the Death Korps of Krieg kind of instills martial laws, like, hey, Governor Henrik, get out, and the Governor Henrik's like, I was a general in the PDF, so I'm taking control of the PDF now, so we have to work together, which is a good power move. And it's like, I think one of the moments where Henrik gets like a, yeah, I got it, puts on his own old outfit of war, is showing up the meetings and shit. Gunther's trying to find Eryx, going through the city, sleeping in like apartments, makes some friends, they die. Then we cut to Trooper Carwin, who, his chapter I forget so much about, cause like he shows up as a new POV out of fucking nowhere and never shows up again. And at the end of it, it implies that he becomes one of the slaves to the Necrons, but he never shows up as a slave, or if he does, we just never say his name, and maybe Stephen Lyons just implies his how he looks, but he never shows up again. He doesn't die, he just doesn't show up. And it felt odd, because I forget even what he did in that chapter. Like, I know he fought Necrons, and I guess it was a way to, later on in the book, Gunther becomes a PDF trooper, and then by extension becomes a sergeant by the book's end. So maybe this was a way to get more action scenes in the books. I could see, like, maybe somebody coming in and saying, oh, we need action around this mark, because it has been enough action scenes. It's a war book, I need war in the war book. And then he kind of went, I guess I'll have a chapter of a guy fighting some Necrons. It's what it feels like anyway. It feels so out of left field. But they do this cool thing where they're cutting back from the commissar to the governor to Gunther, and we're not showing Eryx at all for a good long while, until finally when we do find her again, she is a slave. It's cool to show her go from this high status to this low status. The book kind of starts with him like romanticizing about the Space Marines and wanting to be like them, and how he didn't pass the physical to become a guardsman or PDF, had to become a mining overseer, and so like be a hero. He's a scaredy cat. He runs away from the mutant, doesn't stand up to anybody, kind of pushover, runs away whenever the obelisk is being weird in the tunnel. Showing that he runs away. He romanticizes the war, but doesn't act upon it, and by the end of it, he is acting upon it, which is his arc. He goes to find Eryx because she has this necklace. Governor's trying to find her through the necklace intercom. Can't find her. Gunther's there. They take him on board. He gets drafted, and we cut to 2 weeks later, or 3 weeks, and he's like a trooper now. He's Trooper 1419, and he's like becoming more and more of a soldier as we go along. There's like the whole middle book is just like a lot of battles and character moments that are kind of like really subtle, but so much of it is just fighting that I kind of forget. Once it jumps 2 weeks, my brain kind of fries. Because so much happens in this book, and I feel like it's kind of like a way longer book with maybe more like character, showing Gunther go through the training instead of having a montage of him in the training. Even though it was good, but he's basically becoming more and more like he goes through some battles. It's kind of forms like a bit of a bond with the Death Korp of Krieg, but not really because they're emotionless husks of just violence. All while Eryx is mining for basically this cult that worships the Necrons. She meets up a friend named Tylar. I'd say Tyler, but it has an A, so it's Tylar, who's like a lord's son. They met at a party once, she doesn't remember him. And they kind of like have a weird relationship where they're sort of like maybe into each other, but she doesn't want to betray Gunther. And by the end, they're kind of maybe a thing. But that's kind of starts Eryx's arc of like being like beaten down and destroyed, and kind of having to rely on Tyler a bit too much. There's a lot of talking about how she leans on him for strength, gets her strength from him. And it feels a bit too much like, why couldn't she just have her strength on her own? Why does she have to rely on like a guy to have all of her strength? It's a bit weird, because like Gunther doesn't have to rely on anybody but himself. And yeah, they mentioned that Tyler relies on her as well, but because of Eryx's point of view, we know how often she mentions this, so it feels a bit like she's a bit too reliant on him for strength. Tyler's a more like active character in this plot with Eryx because she kind of just wants to die. Which is weird because she's the one character to survive. Her stuff's cool. There's these cultists who are fucking crazy. They find out that she's governor's niece and want to take her to the Necrons to show that they're loyal and good servants. But like the Necrons don't care and they just kind of kill them and capture her anyway. Which is great because like the main guy, Amareth, is a huge dick. Before Amareth gets killed by Necron, they try to like escape. And I love how much of this book shows how incompetent people are as people. There's so many instances in this book where like someone will pick up their gun to go shoot and they'll fumble out of their hands. They'll drop something, they'll miss something, they'll miss the shot like multiple times. It's really cool to see characters like fuck up because as people we fuck up all the time. Henrik gets to communicate that, you know, they have Eryx respond to one day or she'll die. He does respond and Colonel 186 shoots him for communicating with the enemy and for compromising. It's such a good death because of the whole book. They set up how Colonel 186 and Henrik are kind of at ends with each other because like Colonel 186 is very flagrant with death and killing this troop full. Henrik wants to save everybody but fight the Necrons well. And they're always kind of fighting the whole book. Like whenever he sends a message to respond back, like it's kind of like, oh, he's done. It's just so fucking sad. Like him getting shot in the face after trying to save his daughter, and he just gave Colonel 186 like a reason to shoot him. Kostlin has a mission where he tries to go underground based on Gunther's notes about the mines, even though they're highly inaccurate because he's been down the mines 3 times. There's a big Necron like pyramid tomb thing that is all the forces are coming from. They kind of go underground to get there to deliver a charge, and they pretty much all die. I might have been like misrepresenting the book or misreading it, but like they come back up. It's Kostlin and one other trooper. And it's the first time we see a Krieg man without his helmet on. They go undercover, they get a car with a bunch of explosives, and they send it into a building. I forgot what the building was. But I don't know, when I was reading it, I thought they sent it into the tomb and blew it up. And then they didn't. So I'm not sure if they just made a decisive strike against like a structure or what they blew up, I forget. They blew up something. It cuts 3 weeks and Kostlin's back at base and he has a sling on his arm and he's like grumpy. You know, from there, Kostlin has another mission where they're going to fight the Necrons head on while Gunther and a small group of people go into the tomb and blow it up with the nukes. And Gunther's in a suicide mission, that shit. He fails. He's ordered to pull back and he's really pissed. They talk about a lot how because the equipment's so valuable that if like you're about to be blown up by a Necron, throw your gun to save the equipment. When Gunther comes back to tell that the mission was a failure, 186 doesn't recognize him at first, then doesn't care, and he just asks the quartermaster to grab the bomb and that's it. Because they need to save the equipment. And that which leads into Kostlin and how he ends. So his end is very abrupt, and I don't quite like it that much. They're en route to the final battle. They meet up with civilians. And I guess it's dramatic irony because the whole book he's talking about like how the civilians should be saved and helped, and he goes to negotiate with these civilians in this building with guns, and one of them's a cultist, and they hold him at gunpoint, and then it's like, have your man, what do you do now? And they just shoot through him and kill the guy. Which I find bizarre because like, I get that like, it's all in the service of the Emperor.
For the Emperor!
you gotta weigh like the tactical advantages of killing a man of such high rank. Not because his rank is high, but because, like, if he survived this long, there must be a reason. He must, like, be knowledgeable, smart, efficient, loyal, self-sacrificing. He's gotta be a good trooper to make it this far in a universe where it's constant fucking war. I know the Death Korp of Krieg men don't like a lot of people, but I feel like they would like the Commissar by virtue of the fact that he's been with them for like 30 years and has fought by their side. But maybe not. Maybe that's the whole point, is that like in this universe where like it's constant death and destruction, maybe you wouldn't give a fuck. Maybe you can't allow yourself to give a fuck. Because of the constant war and pain and suffering, you can't allow yourself to actually care for even a micro moment. Because if you do, it will mean death. And that's fucking sad, man. And as he's dying, his eyelids have been shut, and he's feeling fucking death take him. The quartermaster is like sliding his weapon out of his hand. And it just shows that like, he's just another number in the death tally, and his equipment matters more than him. It's what gets me about Colonel 186. He's a good fucking character because, like, I fucking hate him, yet at the same time, I totally understand him. I don't want to, like, agree with this guy who, like, ordered the death of so many people. In this sort of a society, what else do you fucking do but become like an emotionless husk of a man who just lives off of war, because that's what the whole galaxy is just war. Gunther and Eric's, their arcs come from the fact that they were comfortable. And now they have to actually, like, deal with reality and, like, oh, what is important when your life's on the line and everything's going up in flames? And Gunther, like, becomes the strong man he wanted to become for Eric's. Even though he saw himself as a different person, he saw that, like, maybe now he could protect her now that he was like this. Same with Eric's, going from, like, privileged girl to more wizened by the world now that she's experienced such pain and suffering. But she's also, I think she's become weaker from it. Like, she's lost some of her resolve. When the lifeboat's offered to her at the end, and she takes it, she's like, my uncle didn't take this lifeboat. Like, what am I, right? Which leads us to the end where they lose. They fucking lose. The Necrons win. The heroes fail. What a downer goddamn ending. And as, like, Eric's is being evacuated, she's like, Gunther's gone. He would have found me by now, because I've been all over the newscasts. But he was out fighting, so he didn't see it. When he gets back, like, he doesn't know that she's there. And he sees her as she's boarding the transport ship. And it's the most cuckiest fucking moment. You know, his hair's cut. His face has changed. He's physically changed so much. You know, the starvation, the training, the fighting, the horrors he's seen, everything. Gunther looks completely different. It's sad because Eric's looks right at him and doesn't recognize him. He sees her for like one last time, and then Tyler puts his arm around her and they go onto the fucking ship, and it's like, you got cucked. Like, you fought and did like all this shit to get cucked and left for dead on a fucking dying planet to be exterminated by like whatever means. I don't know how they do exterminatus. I imagine it's like glassing a planet. Tyler gets away. Which I did not like him as a character. I mean, I liked him as a character, but like he was a bit like, I guess I got jealous for Gunther. Which, like, to be fair, they were never in a relationship. Even though Eric did feel some betrayal at kind of like having some slight feeling towards Tyler, it was more like me and Gunther like an unofficial thing. So, but still, it's like we were kind of a thing. But like, and it's so good because like Gunther's not an asshole, and he's like, you know what? I win. Eric's is safe and happy. I can die now. Like, and that's so fucking sad. I mean, it's also, like, it's adorable in this sense. Kind of like hard-boiled badass thing of, like, the best thing I could do for the one I love is to leave them alone. I think, like, a true act of love. That, like, Gunther can, like, not be mad about that and just be, like, happy that she's, like, alive and safe. And he's left on the planet to be exterminated. And it ends on a weird note where, like, he tries to get back to his old apartment but can't. Which is odd, because I thought they would do a thing when he got to his old apartment where, like, Eric's left a note, maybe saying, like, oh, I've always loved you, and blah, 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 and I'm sorry you weren't here, but maybe after all this, whatever, we can find a way to blah, 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 blah. Never gets there, finds a dead Krieg soldier, takes his shit, becomes, like, the dead man walking through the Krieg, and then goes towards the Necron tomb, and then ends and just says he was going to be a hero. And it's like, what does that mean? Like, I can assume that, like, he died fighting or just got shot immediately. It kind of ends on, like, a abrupt note. Like, you're watching a movie, then all of a sudden it cuts to the wide shot of them driving, and you're like, wait, we're done? There's not more book? Overall thoughts. I believe that had really strong characters who were really interesting and had very nice arcs. The plot, I felt, kind of jumped a bit sometimes. It wasn't like a continuous thing, like would move in time a bit faster than I thought it would, or I guess that I'm used to. I think, like, for a first book, it's very good. It's not like a fucking amazing piece of fiction that will be heralded for the rest of time, but it's really competent, solidly written, really good characters. You learn about them fast and you care about them fast. I cared about Costilian, Gunther, Erix, and Henrik immediately. And that kept me through the whole book, is just strong characters. And good action, really made you feel like you're in the moment. Like, of course, I mean, I feel like if you're making a series where it's all about war, the action should be, like, fucking great. And it is, it's really good. I'd recommend it to people who are into Warhammer 40k. I don't know if it's an accurate representation of, like, Krieg and the Necrons and how they work. I enjoyed myself. Like, I kind of ate this book like candy. It was a thoroughly good time. Guess I want to see what people recommend I'd read next, but still let me know what you think, what you feel. I look forward to hearing about it. I think that I'm going to enjoy this world and this universe. Thank you for watching the first episode of going through Warhammer 40k. Yeah, let me know what I want to read next. Let me know how you felt about this video. You know, the fun stuff. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one.